Gotta wave.
Don't get unruly. This side of the table.
You all right?
No, I got it.
You got it?
I got it.
Didn't know if you're going down, not coming back up.
Red light.
We good?
Game on. So I will bring to order this workshop for April 30th, 2019 at 6 p.m. Let's forego the pledge and just get right into it today, if everybody's okay with that.
Ready to go.
All right, great. And Mr. Sear, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Randy Sear, Public Works Director, Town of Lisbon. I am open to any questions anybody should have.
Perfect.
There's all kinds the other day. You weren't here.
Let's start with the heavy one from last week then.
Yeah, there you
All
go.
right.
Wheeler or salt shed?
Wheeler, because we don't know where we're putting the salt shed.
That's kind of where I figured you would land, because you have the ability from a fund balance allocation to do one or the other. What's the proposal to be able to address the needs of the salt shed beyond?
Well, first of all, for the salt shed, we need to find a good location for one that's not going to give us any more DEP or EPA issues, which is where the condensation of the salt is now. We're having issues with it going into the watershed. So once we pick a location and do studies of whether or not it's going to be approved for that location, right now we only got so much land that we can use for it. My thing is, if it's been an issue where it was, is it still going to be an issue if we build a new one there? My hopes are that with further studies and estimates, getting Dennis on board, we've started looking into quotes. I think we're going to be a little more than what the $250,000 range if we're going to make it totally weather tight and contain any type of contamination coming out of it, because the building we're going to have to build is going to be big enough so we can load and unload trucks inside undercover. So anything that spills over will not be, condensed to that one little area. So anything that we, dump is not going to be outside. So finding an area is one thing we got to work with first. I mean, we're limited with space, so if we put it to where it's at now, that means the storage shed's going to have to go, because we'll have to put it kitty corner to where the existing sand pile is and the green storage building that we have for our signs. It'll be a building that'll accommodate more than one thing. That'll accommodate some coal patch. You can section it off, so it'll contain our salt, some sand, our gravel, our signage, our cones. Everything can be in that building. So there's a little more planning, and I need a truck. 211's no longer going to be an option, so that leaves one whole route that's going to be left without a truck.
Okay. How do we address the third ask for the community for a structure for PW if we're going to be looking at something that's a couple of years out? How do we change the public opinion of our PW crew? I mean, politically said is the fact that I've seen 3 specific initiatives that have gone for referendum that have all been flatly shot down.
You can go with a smaller building,
Yep.
but in that aspect, you're not going to have the. You're going to need the room over there. Like I said, it's still about location, so all depends on where we're putting it, which is going to be centrally located because all my trucks have to go there.
Right.
So that's what's up in the air. Where are they going to let us build it? Are we going to wait until, there's another study that comes along, they said we have to do a certain type of building, or, the tests that were done, probably Steve can attest to this, was before me because there were some wells contaminated further down, correct?
Yeah, down in the watershed.
Down in the watershed. So that's my issue. Are they going to still allow us to put this there or not?
But the
It's all
question,
self-contained.
Well,
the problem is there's not a lot of area in town that actually we've been salting that they wouldn't be able to test and actually find contaminants. I mean, Route 9 was from one end to the other.
Mm-hmm.
So you mean even that one there's that one particular that's down by the river on the other side that actually came up as contaminated. It was still one of those things where, how to get there and did it flow through and
Right.
it was the perfect path underneath. But I guess my biggest question, to go back to Alan, is just the overall plan. I mean, if we only have X amount of space and it doesn't fit in the space, and trucks and sand and salt need to be in the same location, that really, that
There's
makes,
enough parking lot. I think there's enough
I mean,
parking
we
lot.
could
there to
build the
put
suit,
everybody
obviously, you know what I
in. You
mean?
would have to take the building that they're sitting on right now. We'd have to start that in the spring, tear that thing right out of the way,
you mean
and put the footprint
green-
over the same footprint with a little bit more of that parking lot,
Right.
and you could put a building right there.
Yeah.
And if it
It's
was
gonna
all
have to go with
self-contained,
that.
you're not gonna have a watershed issue because there's gonna be nothing out in the weather.
Right, it's gonna be all
That's what it was,
contained.
all the salt out in the street getting washed down into the,
Right. I mean, obviously, we buy over, 100 and something ton, 3,000 ton a year, whatever our number is.
bunch.
Yeah, 3,000 plus ton. So that's obviously going all on the street. So no matter what, it's gonna go somewhere.
correct.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
whether,
your one little
we just
spot,
happen to
you're
have a
spreading it all
higher
over town.
concentration where we're loading and unloading our vehicles, so be as it may, I mean, that's why and it just happens to be in a low part of the plan where, the watershed goes through there.
So you're thinking there's enough room if you actually.
I think there's enough room, and,
The parking lot where you actually put the sand, where you put the salt, you kind of
Right.
clear the whole area up.
but
It'd probably get close to where the transfer station entry road
Right.
is, up in that area.
that'll probably get closed off if that building comes out that way, you know what I mean? Whether we set at kitty corner, I mean, we haven't really taken any measurements or anything, to actually put a building in. Where, we've been going through a supplier, trying to get back some feedback and some pricing. Dennis has been on that. And, the best way I think we should go is the concrete. It's like concrete for like 6 or 8 feet
Yep.
on the bottom. And that goes all the way around, and then it's like a foot and a half thick. I mean, so even if the loader backs into it, it's not gonna back through it.
Much.
Much. And then, concrete on the floor, even though concrete does rot, it's the best way to go. Some people cap it over with hot top, but there again, you could peel it up with I know all the stuff that the Turnpike Authority has all concrete and it's staying pretty good, so.
So is it really, as much as a question where it's going, it's really not a question where it's going. I mean, they actually keep the operation of Public Works.
Right.
There's really only one location that can
Right.
go. The difference would be is what you move and whether or not you relocate the signs and that type of
Right.
stuff, maybe onto
I
another
mean, that
structure in
garage
the back.
isn't in all that great a shape anyway. We've got holes in the roof, we've gotta have
Yes.
repaired.
Well, that was a discussion we had the other day,
Right.
is you actually gotta do something with it right now because
Just-
you don't wanna put money, you don't wanna put a roof on a building and tear down.
Exactly,
Right, so-
exactly.
But
So what's that plan then?
I guess if Randy's, to me, and again, this is my own opinion, if Randy's saying that we need a wheeler this year because we could buy a truck either way, to me, we actually have a year, or
Plan.
several months to put together a plan, lay it out, get it all together. And if it's something that needs to go to vote, it's gonna probably have to go now the following November. So I should say we have a summer to put it together if we're gonna do it the following year, right?
Well,
I just don't have all the numbers back for you guys to say, okay, the wheeler's gonna cost me 210,000, the building's gonna cost me X amount of money. I don't have those hard numbers yet. I'm only using the figure that my predecessors had written down
For the-
and allotted 250 grand. I don't have that concrete number.
Yeah.
By the time we do concrete, excavation, if we have to wire it, there's a lot of things involved. Other than that, it's just a widespread building, and then the installation of it and everything. So to get that all in, we need a little more time than now.
Back to the wheeler, I
Yeah.
figure if we miss the window of opportunity with the 210 this year, you're not making it under a referendum for the 250 next year. With the pricing increases for steel and everything that I'm seeing on trucks, it'll likely be above the 250 next year.
No, I think if there's a need, that we need to address it. I mean, was on the capital plan for a
Right,
reason.
that's
but-
why I said we didn't want to sit here and armchair quarterback this in that regard. Dennis had the dialogue last week, bringing us up to speed with what the current condition of the existing building is, and okay, the wheeler's in the plan here, but the fact is, what's the plan with that existing building versus a wheeler? Because we've got funding to be able to do one, not both.
Right.
And the flip side of that, I'm okay in hearing what's been expressed for the location, so we can work within that existing blueprint. The other key point that I'm focusing on, Randy, is not everything in that facility is undercover now. Why are we changing? To increase the cost.
Well, it's not to increase the cost, but the building that was slated to be used,
Yeah,
whether we do the canvas type building
yeah,
or we go with a wood structure, will determine, just what kind of price you're gonna,
right.
the one like Lewiston has down off the Ferry Road or down by Walmart, that's the type of building we're looking at, is having one of those.
The metal ribs and the
Yes,
concrete.
yeah.
Yeah, 'cause you're not trying to insulate, you're not trying to heat it.
No,
You're just keep
no,
the
it's just
weather
cold
out.
storage, just to keep the
Right.
the product that's inside dry. I mean, the building we have right now is actually, it's got, skylights that formed, and it's got black mold all over it. So it's not, you look up, it's all black. So, I mean, my thing is just to replace the parts that were broken, but everything's molded, and
Yeah.
I don't think anybody wants to walk up there, to tell you the truth.
So what's the plan for that then?
The plan for it, like,
Make it disappear.
You can't this year.
Yeah, we can't this year, that's what I'm saying, we're living with the here and the now.
we just want something to get us by just doing that one section of roof, because the other side's fine. You don't have to redo the whole building. It's just that one side where we keep all our signs and, stuff in cold storage, our tires.
So when you peel that back and you find black mold eating through that and it's all rotted, then what?
But you can't just slide some steel roofing up there for now to keep it
You
dry.
could, but I
mean,
don't know if the steel roofing's gonna be more expensive than actually asphalt, because,
Right.
right now, I mean, that would be great if you
I
just
don't know
want
how big of an area that you're talking about, but I mean,
Yeah,
whether it's
it's only that one side, because the side where the salt is fine. It stays dry.
Okay.
I mean, the side of the wall's caved in, but it's been caved in for a couple of years. It's not going anywhere.
At least.
Right,
Yeah, so it's not going anywhere.
so we could in essence, put a Band-Aid on a bullet wound here and get through for another
Yeah, I mean,
year.
it's just to keep the stuff that's in there, because what happens, it rains through the roof, and then it gets ice builds up, and then everything's in the ice. So,
So to circle back from Dennis's discussion last week, then we need to make sure that we at least commit the 10,000 for the roof repair that he was talking about at that point.
yeah, which I'd be surprised.
That's our
I mean,
estimate.
and I don't even know if the 10,000 was to do both sides of the roof. I'm only proposing that we only have to do that one half.
just to get it
Just
through.
to get us through. I mean,
I think you don't know what you don't know until you get up there and you peel it back.
exactly.
So I say that, if I trust Dennis's judgment, I mean, if everybody's on board, I think we allot the 10, and obviously if it comes back and we can get away with one half, and the money comes back and no harm, no foul.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I was just saying, if we put 10 up, it only costs us 5, we're ahead of the game, we just put the 5 back in, and we're good to go.
Yeah.
Regardless of the case, if we were to move with the bigger structure, that building would go away regardless, right? I would think regardless.
I would think regardless, that thing's got to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you
Now,
want the
There's
10.
no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The
Make
floor's
sure
all
I have
broken
for
up.
It was
I mean-
old when we were young. So.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Right,
So-
right.
Pretty much.
So we all agree then, because we're trying to just give town manager some direction, that for now, we'll add 10 for this particular issue with the salt shed, try to limp along for one more year while we come up with the plan of the site for the new shed and what we're gonna use.
Yep.
I think before, we would just really need to actually come down with a firm plan on layout, funding, well, just price initially of, location and price, and then figure where we go with funding, you mean?
Right.
The building structure he talked about, first I think we land there and get that sort of, and we won't really know what that looks like, or we probably can get an estimate of what we think that size should
Yep.
be. And then that helps us start to look for where we want to place this thing, if it'll fit an existing footprint, or if we need to be looking for something else, or scaling back, can we?
Because they have specific sizes available,
Yep.
but they also say they will custom fit, a building per design. So
Anybody will custom fit.
that's what I'm saying, So can we take an original design that they already have, an original
Yep,
a size, and go with it? 50 by 100, or I know it's not going to be big enough, but
Yeah.
I'm just throwing numbers out there. But get something that'll fit our footprint.
Something they already prefab.
some
and have
standard,
it
that
order.
way we're gonna get a
It's like
decent
a
deal.
cookie cutter. They stamp it out. The
Oh, yeah.
canvas is already made. They just ship it.
Right.
I think it'd be important just to get the numbers, so our capital and, our next capital improvement plan actually has the correct numbers in there, so we're not chasing something that 250 numbers have been there for how long now?
Years?
Yeah, so it's probably, we're gonna get a surprise, I think.
Yeah,
We're
it's
gonna
just
get
one
a
of those things
surprise.
where it was just a place mark, it wasn't an actual figure, so.
That's what I'm saying.
Let me float something else out, 'cause as you were talking about footprint of where we're gonna put this thing. We haven't, this is an if, We haven't closed on, but if we do close on the Warumbo Mill site, I know our plan had only been to cap it. I don't know how far back that goes without thinking about it. I don't even know if that'd be a suitable place for a salt shed, but food for thought. I know it's outside of, it's away from the industrial circle, it requires trucks to load salt, and so there's gonna be some moving parts
All
there.
it's gonna take is there be a loader on site, that's it.
Right. So then that may, I don't think the intent was ever for us to do anything beyond if
I
we
think
move on that.
it'd be a challenging site, just knowing,
Close to the river it is.
close to the river and
Yep.
just how the layout of it is. I mean, but ideally for the functionality of it, the idea of on-site where the public works garage is the ideal scenario.
Oh, I agree.
It's, that just only makes sense, but I think that's be the first option and then, reach out from there,
So
Like we-
short term for this year then, the fact that you identified other funding sources available, what was the number again from the other fund that was available? You listed a source last week that was,
Oh, so there's a reserve account for town buildings.
and how much is in that?
There's 70,000 in that.
Okay, so in Dennis Unlaid pricing for projects to about $100,000. So we need to actually budget 30 between that and your reserve account.
But there was already 30 that we put besides that.
Right.
I think, wasn't there, in that, in the buildings?
Right, but you don't want to deplete, you don't,
Yeah.
I mean,
No,
we got to
that
have
was the
something
block.
for emergencies, so.
I thought there was 30 above the other amount there. I thought there was two different categories, but I may be,
Well, you've got what's in your regular budget.
Yeah.
You've got those 3 line items.
Yeah.
Then you've got that 70.
Yeah, I think
That's all you have.
my memory serves me correctly, we were gonna tap it out completely if we were to do everything all
Yeah.
the building needs, including
Right, and we
pushing
can't
the
do
roof.
And it's already in the list for a revisit. The recommendation from the Public Works Director is to actually proceed with the Wheeler as planned for discussion to be able to Band-Aid what we have, and we need to address that on the buildings budget for how we're gonna pay for that during this budget cycle.
could I ask a recommendation? I know there's a lot of stuff going on, but maybe when we do our final discussion budget-wise, we just have a layout of more of a line item for, which building, what dollar amount, so,
Yes.
just so we're not shortchanging ourselves at the end of the day, so we know what is gonna be allocated for what.
It makes
And
perfect
if we need
sense.
to add to it, and whether it's coming out of our undesignated, whatever we need to do to make sure that that fund is where it needs to
Yeah,
be.
no, by all means, because
Oh, that makes perfect sense.
I mean,
Yes.
the roof of the town hall was 32 grand, the wall in the back was 25 grand, the Beaver Park well was 5 grand, salt shed was 10, so yes, I want to know where all of those are coming from.
That wasn't even taking consideration of walls and stuff that actually
Yeah.
are.
That's that same line item that Dennis was talking about, absolutely.
And if you're just gonna Band-Aid that salt shed, metal panels may cost you a little bit more, but you can take them down and reuse them. When you put shingle asphalts up there and you take them down, it's over.
Yep.
It's not a bad
It's ju-
approach,
again,
Chris.
It's just a
That's true.
suggestion, because again, we have the park, we have sheds and this and that here and
Yeah.
there that you could reuse
Absolutely.
that stuff over again, where asphalt, like I said, asphalt's gone.
Yeah.
You fucking
It just
put it
ends
up
up
there,
next
next year
door,
we
right?
tear it the fuck down, it's gone. It's
Yeah.
gone,
No,
Ends
that's
up next
true,
door.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and that would be my suggestion, that's
Get more bang for our buck that way, so I like it.
Yep.
if we're gonna look.
Yeah. And that way, you really wouldn't have to replace any boards at that point. You wouldn't have
Like,
to
you don't have to do
replace any
anything, all
of
you'd
the
have to do
plywood.
is strap it, you don't have to do one like this, it's all sealed, seamed.
No.
You could do one, you could just,
Screw it.
correct, you put
Yeah.
up a little bit of strapping and zip, 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 zip,
Yeah.
it's covered.
Redirecting water is what you're doing.
Correct.
Pretty much, yeah, just so it,
Keeping it outdoors is where we prefer it.
exactly,
Yeah.
yep.
Chair, may I? Since we're
Absolutely.
actually on the Wheeler discussion, I mean, you actually had, do we actually have more hard numbers now as far as
someone
the
somewhere?
Wheeler and
Yeah,
for the
we're within
accessory
the
part of it?
$210,000 mark because we can get a cabin chassis for about 105. That's been on the norm between 105. I asked for quotes, not a hard estimate. You know what I mean? Or estimates, not a quote. And basically, I was coming back at 104, 107, 112 on just cabin chassis. That's with Peterbilt, International, and Freightliner. And then between Viking and HP Fairfield, it was between $88,000 and $91,000
That
for the
body
outfit.
and gear?
That's
Or-
for the dump body, the headgear, the wing, the plows, the spinner, the tank, everything set up. All the controls, newer controls, the newer style controls, which is everything is on an armrest that when it's not used can be turned to the side. and everything's at touch of your hand. So you're not way over here pulling levers or nothing like that. Everything's right here.
Simple.
Simple.
Yep.
Yeah.
But those numbers will just, once we move forward and that's a path, we'll just get some more firm numbers for a bid process.
Right, because, they're all on the high side, but there again, I probably won't be plowing with that truck till, not this winter, but the following winter.
That's where I was going to land. In fact, is one of the
20,
things we want to
21.
be talking about is the lead time on this thing to be able to get the benefit.
You're telling us the other truck will make it through this next winter?
Nope.
So how do
That's
you fix that? Because that's the
Well,
discussion we just had, yeah.
That's why I propose, and I had talked to Diane about it, going to, I've got an in as far as the Turnpike Authority
You getting
goes,
something from the auction?
at the auction in September. I know the 2 units that I got my eye on, they've got the salt, the spreaders on the back and everything. It's gonna
What's
be.
do we actually have that estimated into our budget right now for
Well,
that though?
No, but the trucks, from what they were saying, run anywhere between 12 and 18,000. And you get a truck that's complete and ready to go.
But still, we need to have that allocated as far as the budget moving
Right.
forward. So I mean, is that,
So that's the stopgap that gets us through.
That's correct. That's a truck that I know will pass for a sticker, and I know the mechanics, so they'll tell me exactly. Just because it's pretty on the outside doesn't mean it's good on the inside. But I know the trucks, I've actually driven the trucks that are going to be coming up.
so how do we actually go about that? I mean, what line does that actually go in? Is that a part of the capital at that point, or is that just actually equipment?
No, I'll just
But
put it
Fran, another thing I was thinking, because it's going to go way past 1920's budget, going to be in 2021's budget before we even have to pay for that truck, the new one. It's going to be past July of 20 before that even comes. I mean, we might have to put a
It's
down
good
payment.
because it's good because we had no use out of it.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but we're talking about it now, but we've
Yeah,
got about
no,
a year and a
it's-
half to pay for it.
Right.
So, I mean, we're gonna go through this next budget where if we have some money allocated for it, and maybe it's not the whole 200,000 or whatever, maybe it is, but, if it's a little bit more and we get so much further out, there's no way that truck's gonna make it again. When I had it, it overheated and.
Why do you think that's far out? I mean, is it just
Because of what I'm getting back from the manufacturers.
Lead time right now is
Lead
10
time.
months on
10 months
commercial
on-
trucks.
yeah.
Right.
That's the unfortunate
if it's
thing.
not actually on the lot somewhere? is
Right,
basically
so
what I'm saying.
basically, if there was 15 to be had when I was looking back in March, and when I talked to them, probably about 3 weeks ago, there was only like 12 left. So the more you get down towards July, and everybody's budgets are coming in, everybody's gonna be scoffing them up, and you might be left at the bottom of the barrel getting a lesser truck, but I would hope not, because these trucks have to last.
With
a
that
long
comes
time.
along the idea that accessorizing it's going to come in that same line, that same.
Well, that's
time
the
frame.
being upfitted is another thing.
Yeah. Because the last time we went through the process, I mean, I wasn't on council, but there was actually a delay there last time, trying to get that in service. It was right on the edge of, I think it started the season without it, right? I mean,
Yep.
But, yeah.
Well, it got less complicated that it doesn't take your two different budget cycles to make one truck and put it on the road these days.
Right.
That $100,000 threshold where you buy the cab and chassis one year and you buy the back for the rest of it on the second year, that I'm just grateful we don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
I guess the layout of more, how that's going to be laid out as far as time-wise would be kind of important just to know budget cycle-wise. I mean, I still assume that we'd have to order it within this next budget cycle, so it isn't
Right.
going to be the following year, and that type of stuff, they don't hold the arm on until you actually pick a truck
Till
up.
you order it.
Yeah.
Do you place an order? You got nothing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So the truck you're looking to replace is just a little single axle that you go around and do a smaller route with the
Well, no,
sand in it and salting?
The truck they were replacing was actually a tow truck, and then it got cut
Oh, yeah,
and
I-
got made into a dump truck that
Didn't we
really shouldn't.
Didn't we replace the frame of that like 2 years ago?
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Just
yeah,
'cause
we
it was,
band-aided it a couple years ago.
it
So
was getting ready to fall
I've heard.
apart, so we put a frame underneath it. Yeah.
I guess the question I would ask from a budgetary standpoint is anybody uncomfortable with what he's expressing with moving towards a wheeler? Because if we're not, I would try to pursue this at a future council meeting, that when the budget's blessed, that there's a bid already out there on the streets that's ready to go subject to financing, like we did with paving. And that's getting us, as best we can, in a position to be receiving it sooner rather than later.
I mean, I would think that's what we'd have to do, because
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, if we wait 6 months, I mean, the price that we actually originally budgeted for is probably not
Price of
going to be
steel could go
adequate
up.
anymore.
Price
so-
of steel could go
Yeah.
up.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so I mean, to me, as soon as we actually have a firm number, and that's what we get, we get approved for, you're gonna have to make sure it's ordered, because, I mean, if you wait 6 months or more, that you may be coming back to council because you may not have enough
You'll be
funds.
above the 250,
Well,
and you have
that
to
was
go to a
the-
referendum, and it just gets more
Yeah,
complicated.
let's-
That was the big thing with the dealers, because I was getting quotes, and they go, well, when is the budget going through? I said, in July. He goes, well, these numbers aren't gonna be that great, you know? So I'd have to get the up to date, and then only have, I think their pricing's only good for 30 days.
Right.
So, once I have the pricing, the rock bottom pricing, and we open them up and see who's who, I got 30 days to buy, or else it's subject to change.
Yeah.
I don't think it ever goes down. No.
Not once they know you got interest.
So we
Right.
just walk around the room, right? Everybody here's, everybody
Everybody,
here understands that we need another truck. Ready, set, everybody, everybody's nodding their head.
If it's
I
actually a
think-
capital plan, yeah, that's.
Get a real number,
Yep.
let's see if
Think
we can make it happen.
Like we talked about with paving, it just makes sense
I've
to
got
be,
specs on a truck that Freeport had, Duncan had done some investigation for me, and he knows the guy down at Freeport that actually spec'd out a nice truck. He'd been a mechanic there for,
you want Wheeler specs, I'll make sure you have them by the first of tomorrow.
there you go, yeah.
The first of tomorrow. Another question, I mean,
Yeah, just email them to me, and that'll be great. I'll print them off and send them out and get quotes.
and the reason we do a cab and chassis is because we'd be probably looking for a stainless bed, which
That's correct.
most commercial dump trucks are
Yep.
just steel, right? I mean,
Well, the
that's,
thing is, with our stainless bodies, we're able to swap trucks, you know, as the truck rots out from under it, we
Well,
can
it's
move our
not
gear
like-
onto it.
except for some of the sanding gear, actually.
Right,
Not
yeah,
in-
stuff that takes a real beat.
Yeah.
Again, anybody unopposed to actually putting this on the next council meeting agenda for discussion to be able to at least start that bid process, because we can't vote here.
Yep.
no, I think we all agree.
All that was a.
Yeah. Yes, straw poll, absolutely. So Diane's got that, I will get that information to Randy to start that process for specs. And you want the wing arms and everything associated with that for
Everything.
winter operations as well?
Whole shooting match.
Like I said, I got both. I got two prices from HP and then over to Viking. So, which are the two big players? There's one coming up in Vermont. I don't know if you know about that dealership yet, but it's just service would be terrible in trying to get parts.
That's why Viking Seeds moved right to our town line.
Now,
They moved from Vermont just for that reason, just to
Right.
be in central Maine for
yeah.
service.
It's just that Whited Ford, when they're selling their Peterbilts, have taken this other company on in Vermont, and my thing was going to be the accessibility for parts.
Yeah.
So, I mean, with them being down the road, if you need a cutting edge, it's quick and easy, or any part.
Yeah. And again, it's not about any of the suppliers. All the people that you actually cited, it was somebody that I would be comfortable actually getting it to. They sell a good
Right.
product.
Yeah.
Yeah. So by all means, Fairfields does great. Viking saves. They're all. Yeah.
So I sent them all out a set of specs as far as what I wanted for a body and controls and plow and everything, and that's what I've gotten back so far. But
Sure. Yeah, and they're gonna want the nitty gritty to be able to dial you in for sure.
exactly. So I gave them. I just needed numbers so I could bring you guys and tell you what it's going to cost. I mean, you probably know, Alan. You know what trucks are going for.
That's so gross. And the new ones don't last anywhere near as long as the ones you're
Oh, no.
replacing either, too. That's
Right.
the unfortunate thing.
Right.
All right. Who wants to go next? Go.
As far as budget-wise, I mean, it's one of those things, I'm just curious, or any
The rest is window dressing.
look, exactly. The rest of your budget looking through, I mean, we had talked about different things as far as through your budget, you know, the idea of just different salt versus, you know, sand and that type of stuff. I mean, what do you think you're laying this year compared to what needs to be? I mean, it's always, a lot of the stuff usually is underfunded, but yet year to year is so different. I mean,
Well, I've gone back, you know, a couple of years and know that the salt usage is about, you know, around 3,000, 3,300 ton. And I'm thinking of just up it to 3,500 ton. I think I was at 3,000 ton last year. And it seems we're gonna be at the 3,500. It can't get any worse than it did this past year with the freezing. We had unbelievable amount of salt, salt usage, but we had a lot of freezing weather, a lot of freezing rain. So for that aspect, I don't think we'll ever go any further than we did this year. I mean, I came into it in February, but I noticed that the usage, we're using 2.5 loads a storm. It's about what we're using. And then as far as the mag, I call it mag, but it's magic, whatever the calcium. Just a little more education on the driver's side, and where and when they should be using it, because when it was 40 degrees out, they were still using it. I go, shut that stuff off. You don't even need it. You don't need it till it's like 10 degrees out.
It's not doing you anything.
It's not doing anything.
It's not that you don't need it. It's not doing it.
It's not doing anything.
Waste of product.
Right, because that stuff's made so when you have icy conditions, it'll stick to the road and just doesn't blast off. That's what that stuff's made for. It's made to react, and especially in cold weather, and it starts the process a little bit quicker. And the other thing, you don't need it in Houston Park. You don't need it in gross development.
Yeah, your arteries.
You need your arteries. Your 196, your Route 9, your 125, and the roads leading in. Your hills, your corners, and whatever. But on the rest of it, you can take a break from it. You don't need it. So it's a little driver training, operator training that Buttons and I are going to do. There's some guidelines. There's even classes on when to use it and how to use it, which would be beneficial for the guys come fall, because who knows who I'll have then. But I seem to have a pretty decent crew now. So the guys that are here now want to stay here, and they want to, they actually like working here. So, with that, this fall, we'll set up a class. So I've got like 3 new drivers, basically. And that's almost half my workforce on the road. The other guys are experienced enough to know.
You hope so.
I would hope so, yeah.
So the 165 in that line for next year, Randy, is it adequate? Because I'm looking at where we already overran that figure for this current year.
And that's on the winter?
The winter. 5385 in winter ops.
It's 150.
5385, yeah, 150
150,
grand.
so we're actually, we expend, right. I just want to make sure that you have adequate associated with that. I mean, I can write a lot off last year. The fact is we were not properly prepared. We had new staff, and there's a huge learning curve to be able to be sitting in the truck to be able to get what we did last year. I don't want to base this year's performance on any of that, because you're already addressing those things.
Yeah, me neither.
But I just want to make sure that when we give you a number, it's adequate for what you need for the coming year.
Right. Do you have the total on the uses that I used already, Diane? As far as the salt goes? I don't remember what it was after the last shipment, but we've got probably 6 loads stockpiled right now, so.
And then school comes out of that too, right?
Yeah, we've overexpended by 64,000.
Yeah. 150 grand should do it.
Okay, so that's what I'm comfortably hearing in that regard, is because I know the efforts to actually curb what we're doing with liquid calcium is going to have a direct benefit.
Absolutely.
Re-education on this. I know you and I talked about the fact that bypassing the software that we're putting on all these trucks because they're not trusting it, that has a cost.
Right.
The fact is, if you're sitting idly at a stop sign and you got it on bypass, it's just blowing it into the intersection.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Those kinds of things is, I think, as you get a more experienced crew, they're going to believe what's actually being said to them.
Exactly.
Okay.
So I'm fine with the 150.
Okay.
Like I said, in my budget, there's been some areas that I haven't used any, but it doesn't mean it won't get used.
His gravel line, we need to add some more to that because of all the gravel we used this past weekend.
You think?
So we're going to change that. We're adding 2,000 to that.
Still there, can't you go get it back?
I never did tell my mother-in-law what you said.
Yeah, probably best for both of us.
Norman's philosophy is just make it all beachfront, charge them accordingly for taxes. It's not
I mean,
cool.
I've
Oh.
gotten calls today.
That
from-
was, let's be clear up there, red light, that was a joke.
Now I've got calls from people on Andrea already and saying that the road's gonna be higher than my driveway. I said, well, everything around the road is sinking. I hate to tell you, but it's true. It's just, I dug that over there for the, put the culverts in, and about 3 feet underneath the driveway is nothing but water. The water table is that high down there.
And it blows me away because just not even the next street up there, we're same crossover, same place, runs perfectly with no issues, never
Yeah.
had a problem there.
It's just a low spot down in there, and that's all there is to it.
Well, if you've got cat nine tails in your yard, that usually tells you that it's
Pretty wet. Just a little.
So what are you advocating for gravel?
That whole place is a swamp, let's be 100% honest. Frank Gross didn't get that land cheap because it was
Looking at the
fantastic.
$53.93 to $6,500.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
what?
We spent 12 grand before this past weekend's events.
I'm just looking for another,
Yeah.
just looking for another $2,500.
Yeah, but as Alan mentioned, they were already almost.
We already exceeded 12 grand, so 2,500.
Well, the problem there
To
is,
quote Chris, that's a hug and a kiss, and you're still screwed.
well, the problem is that I put 170 yards on Pine Woods Road in
Yeah.
Park Street.
We won't have that
We
issue
don't
next
plan
year.
on.
Right.
So
Okay,
that's a good part of my usage for the whole year.
okay.
You know, I don't think there's that many shoulders or dirt roads in this town that need that kind of tonnage on it.
So you're talking taking the 65 and bringing it to 9,000.
That's pretty much.
You want it to 9?
Yep.
So, I know we probably already addressed this, so the plan then to be is raising that up, so we're not dealing with this again next spring, right?
That's correct.
I got no issue with that.
Well, I don't intend on having any gravel roads through the winter. You know, that was started by any type of project. This is the reason my RFOs went out today, so I can have bids awarded, you know, mid-May, and go
Paving
on,
crews.
and get first on the list as opposed to being last on the list.
Yes, all blacktop to be plowed next month.
Pretty much, yes. All road construction will be done.
That's good. I'm going to shift gears real quick, because I know we talked about this once, but I just want to get a little bit more clarification. 5470 in solid waste, the trailer, the capital improvements, 100,000 for the trailer. You know, I said the sticker expires June 30th, 2019. That's the same trailer that I thought we were patching, trying to limp through another year.
Yeah, we got it in pretty good shape, actually. We got a whole new floor in it, put new support struts underneath. We've got Mike Peel is gonna get a hold of an app so he can figure out what is the issue with the anti-lock brake system. So basically, it'll tell him basically what's wrong with it.
Yeah.
And we'll address those issues for it can have a sticker. On the solid waste side, that 100,000 is what the price of a J&J trailer is. It was 98 and some change. So, being proactive, I'm just saying, let's not wait till the last minute. We had a rude awakening that this thing wasn't going to pass for a sticker.
Right.
So, you know, I think I'm at under $5,000, Diane, that we have in steel. I had approved it overtime, so they did it overnight.
Yeah.
So they'd have the trailer. We got the trailer on Wednesday. We worked on it all day Wednesday, all day Thursday, and we had it done for Friday morning. So, and it's the sticker runs out in June, but it'll be able to get a new sticker.
So I remember, and I'm just backtracking for the sake of the discussion. That's the good news, because I know that the plan was get this thing up, get it running while we're waiting to get the new one in. And then the new one becomes primary, and then we have something that's a backup.
6 months to order the new one.
Yep.
6 months away.
So we could get another sticker to use through a year, place the order, so we get it inside of that
That's
time
correct.
frame. And then if this the one that we rehabbed, we treat it a little bit more gingerly as a backup, maybe we can stretch it out for a little bit
It
longer.
can stretch out for a while longer, yes.
So just for clarification, the initial request was 100,000. I bumped it down to 50, and I want to take the other 50 out of unassigned. So it wouldn't have such an impact to your budget.
Oh, so 50 coming from operations, 50 from fund balance.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah,
Because I see the 50 on the fund balance, but the other 50 is in the operations.
right, under the manager's request.
Works for me.
I got no issue with that. the issue is right now is if we weren't able
That
to
line's
do it,
gonna dumb down to 50, you're gonna pull
I
it outside
already,
the general
you
fund.
look at the manager's line.
Yeah, yeah.
It's already in there,
Good.
yeah.
How do you feel about that, Randy?
Me, wherever
Six.
it comes from.
6 one way, half dozen another.
Yeah,
better than telling you no, right?
better than saying no.
Right.
I mean, it's up to you guys what you want to do. I'm just
No,
telling you
we
where
need-
you're
we need
at.
to do it.
I mean,
How we-
all I'm doing is revisiting the conversation that we had a short time ago, and
Right.
makes perfect sense. There's nothing's changed.
I mean, I'd tell you how I would make my decisions. That's to buy a new one in probably a few months from now when you get everything figured out financially, and then I'm just telling you what condition some of our equipment's in.
What you clearly heard from
Yeah.
us is that's going to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
We're on board with
It
it.
has to happen.
I think living on borrowed time is something we're gonna try to avoid going forward as much as we can without digging too deep into anybody's pocket.
Right.
Anybody got anything else? We can go through my shopping list, but I don't want to be taking the time.
No, just going back to the discussion we had earlier about the plow truck that we're gonna have to actually bypass. Just curious, where in this budget, or we have to add
I
this
think
budget?
because the other truck's gonna take probably another year before we even pay for it, that we'll just take that 20 from that 210 that I've got coming out of unassigned fund balance.
But if he goes out as soon as we actually,
Thanks.
if we're actually giving him authorization to actually go out to bid after our next meeting, I mean, will that money still be there if this things happen quicker, that's all. I don't wanna shortchange us on the long run if this comes together, unless,
Well, it sounds like with the pricing that he's already gotten, that we might be okay taking that 20 from the unassigned fund balance. I don't think you're gonna find, don't you think?
I don't think you're going to see that much of a difference.
What I heard clearly is somewhere between 105 and 110 plus 99. The fact is he's at the 210, that we don't have 20 grand to repair the one he's got right now.
No.
I wasn't feeling that at all.
Because we're just, that's,
So that said, what I would advocate is if it won't get a new sticker, so we're gonna have to do something. Whether it's actually a rental or something of that nature, if you're gonna need that vehicle next year, we're gonna have to address that somewheres down the road.
Like
Literally.
just add 20,000 under motor vehicle in his budget.
Yeah, because you can't buy one.
yeah, I just have a feeling that the same situation we're in, that maybe instead of 5 people bidding, there may be 25 people bidding. I mean, you just don't know.
well, it's true,
Yeah,
you
that's-
just don't know.
You don't
But
know.
I think
but-
municipalities get it first, and I've always gone to that one that's over at Beach Ridge, the one down in Scarborough. That's where they have that auction, and there's been a fair amount of vehicles that are still there for the public to see. I don't know I don't think Turnpike does the same as DOT does, where they'll invite municipalities first. I don't think that's the same deal, so
Okay.
you're gonna have a lot of the people there looking for equipment and stuff. The guys that are buying, they're looking for plow trucks, but it's like your Scott Furlands and stuff that want it to flip them. So, they'll be at the right place to buy something.
I would advocate for the fact that you put a $20,000 line item on this year's budget under vehicles, and if it goes above that, then we take the rest out of operations, but at least we put something there to be able to cover it.
Say that again now?
There's a marker there for 20.
There's a marker there for 20. If it actually cost us 22, 23 to be able to do it, the other 3 would be expected to come out of operations.
We'd find it.
Yeah.
Now, you actually, with the 5410, actually at 260 for equipment and 110, 210 for the wheeler and 50,000 for a used skid steer loader.
Yep.
Is that still
That's,
in plans at this point, or?
no, I've got that down to 0.
You got it 0, okay, I'm just looking at the initial, I didn't just look.
So the skid steer got pushed back 1 year?
I have to look back and see what's on that undesignated list.
That's what I was just looking at.
Might be in there.
Yeah, because under the equipment, you have 260, it was 210 for the truck and 50 for the
It's on the list for
skid steer.
undesignated.
We're holding, as long as everybody's okay with it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the condition of the skid steer,
Brand new.
the one we're,
We don't have one at this
We
point.
don't have one.
we'll have one, okay.
We
So it's
had
not a
one.
replacement, it's a need.
Yeah, it's a need. We don't have one. We had one. Back when I was working here, we had one. We had one payment left to go, and Ed Wall sent it back to the dealership.
Okay.
Oh, yeah,
So it's a need, okay.
Would you actually be using that, Randy? I guess you explain a little bit more. Is that something that'd be on job site, or would that be actually just right at Public Works? or-
No, that'll be on job sites, and also, rec can use it. Steve, he said, I can't believe we haven't had one, before now.
No, they're handy. I mean, it's without.
Yeah, we could do sidewalks with it, and snow removal, and
I mean, downtown, you possibly could use it for doing some of your sidewalks.
got a York rake on the front that you can do ballparks, you can do roads, you can do your dirt roads, you can do anything. We can, instead of renting a grader from Lewiston, I mean, you can do the dirt roads with that. I mean, there's an attachment, there's all kinds of attachments that thing can run.
But
If I had it, I could lift the guardrail on Summer Street. I wouldn't have to hire it out, because that's what they use.
Yes, to your point, Fern, it's in fund balance, but it won't come out of operations.
Gotcha.
How do you feel about that, Randy?
Better than no.
Got that answer down now.
Well, the thing is, it's one of those things. I mean, we're doing so much handwork, and we're wasting a lot of man time, man hours. I mean, just like when we start doing, we got to put the curbing down up Park Street. So, to have a skid steer around to be moving the dirt around would be great, but we don't. So, I mean, we got to rely on big pieces of equipment that do damage, because you got a backhoe, you got a loader that takes up the whole width of the road, as a part of just closing half the road because the skid steer is so short and mobile. I mean, the thing zips right around. You can do quite a bit with it.
With an experienced operator.
Yep. I know a couple.
All right, anybody got anything else? If not, I'll go with my shopping list and we can,
Go to town, Alan.
No, sir.
wages. Used to be a 50-50 split between water, sewer, and PW. Why is it no longer the case, and why is it 100% on Randy? And if that's the case, why didn't your wages go down?
My wages are actually taking a hit also because we're looking at adding a full-time position to both departments.
Okay.
Going away with 50-50.
So instead of two 50-50s, each department needs a physical body for that position. So both positions are now going to be filled by two, one in PW and one in yours.
It was one position, one person.
Yep.
They
Now
would
we need
spend-
two bodies to do this. What you're telling me?
We've had 5 people in that position over 6 years, which means
50-50.
in that 50-50 position, which basically means every year Public Works is training another plow driver, and every year the sewer department is training another, hopefully, operator. We're training
Throughout the
another
rest.
laborer because we can't keep the position filled. Is that because of the swap, the sharing, you think, or is that because we've had people come to this, they would start out the sewer department. Ultimately, their goal was to get in a position of Public Works, what happened with quite a few of them. And we've only had one, Mike Pila, who's actually been in position in 2 weeks, would have been 2 years, he would have been in it. And he decided over the winter he wanted to be a mechanic of Public Works, so that's where he is now.
Okay.
But it's been a very tough position to keep filled, which puts a strain on Public Works and also a strain on sewer department to try to keep people up to speed with the tasks that need to be done.
And then the issue I have is we're borrowing guys from the transfer station to run the loader route. And what happens, he's a Class A driver, so if he's put in 20, 25 hours plowing for me, he can't run trash the next day. So we're relying on, of course, all my guys are over their threshold for a Class A truck if they go over the road and bring trash, where if Marcel calls in for any reason, we got nobody to haul trash. So it puts me in a pickle too, not only for the Public Works, but up top of the transfer station. Because my guys trickle in there, their guys trickle down on me, so.
Right.
The impact to both their budgets is only half a person.
Half a person because you're making two bodies for one.
Yeah.
Right. All right. You mentioned it, Randy. I want to go there next. Solid waste. Wasn't there a body there as well? So what are we adding to solid waste that's not being filled by having you have a permanent full-time position? Do I have that wrong?
Well, solid waste, I have Marcel, I have Greg, and 2 part-timers that don't
We're
have.
adding a position, though. We're adding we put in for a full-time position up there
Okay.
because of how busy it is.
Yeah,
We thought that would be easier to fill than to try to fill it with more part-timers.
right. That would be fine.
That's our initial request.
Okay, so in theory then, at Randy's disposal, for a winter operation kind of event, we're adding 1.5 drivers, potentially.
essentially.
Okay.
But if you get rid of my 2 part-timers, then I'm still kind of behind.
Well, we're not doing that.
Yeah, I don't think
Yeah,
that's.
Still gonna keep those in there?
Yeah,
current.
that didn't come
that's
into
not
the
being
equation.
discussed,
I
Randy.
thought you were gonna replace
No,
the 2
'cause the-
part-timers.
No,
Because the
I'm
part,
still short.
because the part-timer is a winter position, and we're staffing a position to be able,
Right.
what a lot of folks do not understand is a PW operation in any community is staffed primarily for winter operations, and then what you can get out of it during the rest of the season is additional benefit to the
Bonus.
community.
Well, additional resource too at the transfer station. I know that this is something that Alan's been championing for a while now, and that is more rigorous screening of stuff that's
Absolutely.
coming through there. So that will definitely slow down some of the cost on the waste stream for sure.
To pay for itself. the way it's-
It probably
Well,
might.
I'm
Get hurt.
I'm advocating the $50,000 increase and the increase in the tipping fees that are in this position are actually increased in what we're charging folks to use that facility.
Right.
Until you tell me otherwise, the fact is anything else is being absorbed through taxes, and that's stepping back
Exactly.
for a different level of services.
There's no question about it. Everything in the world goes up, and as it goes up, the cost and the expense go equally. I mean, that's just,
Yeah. When's the last time we increased anything associated with that facility?
Like,
Don't pass one up, what, and probably.
Crickets. I'm not hearing anything.
No.
yeah, we have a list of what it costs, that what we're charging for tires, for TVs and everything. My thing is with my administrator, myself, we're gonna go, my assistant and myself, we're gonna go over to and meet with Marcel tomorrow. And we're gonna go over what it costs him to dispose of the tires, the TVs and the refrigerants and all this stuff, and see if we aren't charging enough, because. I
Where do
don't
you
know-
dispose of them? Re-energy?
What's that now?
Where do you dispose of them? Re-energy, or who takes them off your hands?
Well, that's what I want to know from him, is, what are we paying to get rid of this stuff, and are we not charging enough?
exactly, and
And
it's not just the
obviously, we're handling it, so my labor time in doing that is gonna be taken
calculation.
into effect also. It's just, my labor's not a freebie,
You really need somebody over there that is really their job. Somebody that is actually patrolling everybody coming through there and making sure that not only that
Right.
they're being charged for every piece or
See, what-
accordingly, is that you're also catching the people who are coming our neighborhood from other neighborhoods.
Right.
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
I don't mind taking out the people's trash, but somebody's got to be paying, and they're not using their grandmother's address.
We've been cracking down on that in the last few months.
All right, my mother used to live here, or
Yeah. I'll give you a true story. And the fact is, I put it in writing associated with this. When I've got a guy that's in my office actually saying, forget charging Lewis and charge me because I can bring it to Lisbon for free,
Yeah.
I am pissed off
Oh, yeah, I imagine,
because that is just bold-faced arrogant that we're paying for in this community.
exactly,
Correct.
yeah.
Again,
And
I
I've
don't
had
mind-
that,
I don't mind if you used to live here and now you live in Bowdoin and you want to bring your trash here, but you should get a Bowdoin sticker by using
Right.
by way of Lisbon, and you're charged accordingly.
Yeah.
So we're making money off from you, and it's paying for itself. Again, we don't mind handling it, but I can go there on any given Saturday and roll in there, and within the 5 or 10 minutes I'm there, I can point out people that don't live in our community.
right.
That's the same with that department. When they're doing a swap out of the trash trailer to haul it,
They don't have enough people.
that's two staff members down there doing that work.
Absolutely.
And then you have one staff
No, and
member
I-
going for 2 hours at a time.
Do not hear in anything that I am advocating that this is anything more than out of sight, out of mind. The erosion in the staff associated with that facility has taken us 10 years to get to this point, but how do we get out of it? Because when we're looking at, is it $280,000 next year for tipping fees, or $275, which is a $10,000 increase off a $35,000 increase the previous year? Where does it stop?
Right, because what happened was we didn't even have a contract for paying, what was it,
That's the
$30 before?
recyclable. That's
Yeah.
that new contract that we.
Right, no,
Now
I'm
they-
not
now they've
disputing
bumped it
any,
up to
because that's going to
150.
happen.
I know.
But when we're not even charging people or even stopping them to ask,
Absolutely right.
this is ludicrous.
Right. I think what happens is, Alan, I've seen it happen before, where you start asking people at the stop sign or a little bit before, and if we were to put up the building, and let's say, I had a guy come in today and he had a great idea, and I'm not gonna take credit for it because I had a gentleman come in and say he was PO'd about it too. And I said, yeah, and we're trying to crack down. I said, but our issue is when we start backing up the traffic, everybody's honking, everybody's giving you the bird, everybody's
Yeah.
saying profanities to you. So then we shuffle them through to get the traffic that's lined up around
Right.
my storage shed and down.
Need somebody with thicker skin at the gate, I guess.
Well, it's not only that, Chris, but it's the amount of people that are
Oh, yeah, back it up.
backed up and say, I don't have time for this, I pay tax dollars here, I got a sticker on my car. I think the thing is to have 2 lanes. One coming in with people with stickers, have a guy there, okay, you over here, got a sticker, nope, you go over there, the next guy's gonna deal with you.
Oh, yes.
You're gonna have another lane of coned off and say, okay, you need to go over there. And this guy's gonna be writing you out of,
Whatever your
you
story
either
is.
need a pass or you're gonna go, we're done.
Right.
You're not dumping here today
Oh.
unless you give me $10,
Or
car
$12 or
registration.
whatever it is.
Here's your receipt. See you later. Here's your sticker. And that'd be like, probably even if I had my assistant out there, he's really good, and he's a pretty bold guy.
Oh, yes.
He'd have no problem telling, no, leave, and he's got thick skin,
You're gonna have
guaranteed,
to.
Because a month ahead of that time
You're
frame,
gonna
you've
have
got
to.
the dump sticker is due.
Hey,
The
Right.
reminder's there.
the fact that we'd be able to go ahead and move to the model you talked about, which is actually having dump passes available there, whether it's a one-time, you
Oh,
pay
maybe I'll
this.
get a dump pass.
Well,
You're
the
gonna
thing
see
is,
myself.
and we're not open on the weekends. So if somebody was told you can't dump here, well, I'll buy one right now. Well, we're not selling it right now because of the issues we had down there with money disappearing.
Right.
And rightfully so. So I got it in the works that we're putting a camera in the office that's, motion detected in 360 degrees. So you can see the window there, you can see the window there, you can see the door. So anybody coming in and out of there, if it's through a window or through a door, it's going to pick you up and it's going to record you. So, we've got some issues we were working on. I've written people up for keeping the money box out that wasn't supposed to be left out. Now it's under lock and key. And so those things have been addressed, but I think, what we need to do up there is have, like I said, 2 lanes. One coming in, you got a sticker over here. No, you go over there and somebody else is going to deal with you. Even if it takes some of my other staff and we all get together and, police it. This is like a OUI check. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Basically, there's no way out. You're coming through and you're going to, if you don't have it, you just keep going.
It's the assumption too of what people know going there, because there's other communities I know that people, they cringe going to their local landfill and dump because it's actually held so strict that if you don't have your stuff in right order and things physically seen, they just send you out the door. You mean,
Right.
so, it's not something that may not happen all the time, but it's something that people know, well, I don't know if they're there this weekend or next weekend, I'm gonna go.
Right, just a surprise check.
Exactly, it's that.
Boom, the
it's-
cones are set up and you're like, oh, you had a couple beers coming back from Lewiston. You're like, oh no, now what? You know what I mean? You're going through it whether you like it or not.
Yep.
And if you don't like the results, you're going to be, see you later,
Yeah, no doubt.
Show me your registration that you register your car in Lisbon, Maine, or Lisbon Falls. You get a sticker if you need one. If not, then don't dump here. See you later.
Straightforward, right?
One of the things that I don't think we're prepared to do tonight is actually weigh in on the solid waste. One of the things that I would like to see would be, even if it's a half an hour workshop before the end of the year, the fact is, I would advocate that this position actually pay for itself and that we look at the fee structures that's actually being charged, whether it be the cost of the permit to actually get into the facility or what is actually going out. For the subject associated with what you're actually paying, the fact is, it's not a perfect science because I'm assuming that it's different pricing, but again, I will add it to my list of stuff to send you tomorrow morning. You will have what City of Lewiston actually pays to actually dispose of all the variety of items through re-energy. At least you have a market basis to be able to know if our prices are realistic.
And for this neighborhood, even just regular people, 1 bag a week, you're talking about 52 bags. You go to some of them other communities, we've already experienced that they're paying way more than $12 or $14 or $15, whatever we
Right.
pay, just to bring in common trash.
Right.
Not
And
including
that's
the
just
tires and the refrigerators and the televisions and the waste oil and all that other crazy shit.
Mixed trash, if we didn't have a reciprocal environment in Lewiston, we would be paying $92 a ton to actually dispose of that. The fact is, that cost adds.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, we got to get in front of it and mitigate what we got.
The other piece on this that was actually pointed out to me this week, there was a recent article in Sun Journal. When Lisbon's recycling information isn't even existent, we didn't even get it in the publish, it's a pretty telltale sign. It may be an omission that we didn't make it.
Because we've got high recycling rates. I don't know why we were not contacted.
but I can see in that from any given Saturday associated with that, it is stuff going down the hopper and that we can improve that process. Anything that does not go through that actually can be recycling, only further betters our, with an education piece. That will take a longer fix to be able to do, but it is part of the basket of goods that what I'm hearing is we're looking to add an additional person and a half through this to help Randy be able to address the things operationally. That this is actually something that would be benefiting our community to the tune of $265,000 just for disposal fees this year to do nothing.
I'll be excited to take a look back when we have the opportunity between maybe next year or the following year at seeing what we're doing now, how that has the immediate impact. I think we'll see that. I think conditioning folks by adding that position and doing more of these checks will condition our folks here in town to understand what they need to do to help improve this. And put a dollar amount on it, Alan, I think that's the key.
Yeah, no, by all means.
You're talking over $250,000. It's not chump change. You start talking about that, people don't mind waiting in lines if it means they're saving $250,000, which translates to less money coming out of your bottom line for taxes that you pay.
And that facility was actually like hopping. I mean, when Rick was doing it, they had the little person, little shed there. What was the personnel? What was the level of personnel there? Does anybody know what that was? I mean, there was a point at a time where our town was actually staffed some adequately. I mean, it's before the reception or correction.
Right.
I'd just be kind of curious to see if, we've done studies on every other department, if that was a 6-man operation and now we're down to a 2-man. I mean, be just curious to see when that was actually more efficient.
I'd like to see that in that same workshop discussion,
what the
because
bodies
again,
were.
I want to know what we can do on the revenue side to be able to address what we're talking about on the budget side for the expenditures.
Because
Back when we had the landfill open, there was a lot of stuff that was taken away from there because that was just for household trash, and recycling wasn't a big thing. So we had, I know from experience from dumping there, you used to go see Jerry down at the landfill and basically throw anything you want in there. You had your brush, you had your tires, you had this, you had refrigerators. Didn't get charged for anything. You know what I mean? Now that we're policing all your chemicals, your refrigerators, your TVs, your mattresses, everything, all that stuff used to get put over there.
But there was a time when you went there and things were kind of working. No one seemed really stressed, but it was all functioning.
Well, that's because Mr. Ricker was over there with
But,
the vet man.
Exactly,
You went there to take your trash, man. He was looking in the back of your truck.
He was
paying attention to.
It was a program, though. They actually had the staff to make it work. And that's, I think, what we need to get back to again to actually.
You need everybody.
Functioning.
Yeah. It always works better, Fern, when you got a whole team that's all playing on your team.
That's
you got everybody working there, likes working there, and they all know their job.
Right.
You're paying attention to the bags. You're paying attention to the tire. You're paying attention. You got everybody working. What happens sometimes is your field of employees are sometimes a little weak.
Well, I think it's important for people, especially because I know some people listening, and it seems so we're always adding on staff, but and I think it's nice always to bring back the information where we're not actually adding staff. We're just trying to get back to the levels that we were once that actually operated correctly. I mean, it's kind of like a public works. I mean, it's we could actually still add probably more bodies and still not be as to the staff level that we were at one point in time.
Oh.
So.
To Alan's point, too, the staff that we're adding, we're trying to find a way in the revenue stream to pay for that staff member. So we're not talking about an increase or taking it out of the taxpayers' pockets. It's about finding a way to streamline and eliminate waste, no pun intended, to fund that position. So I think for me, that speaks volumes of commitment. And the person who gets that gig realizes that them policing or their peers policing is going to make sure that they get paid. That's definitely incentive enough.
If I remember correctly, when Wayne Ricker retired, he was not replaced. Marcel was made operations manager.
Correct.
And that's when Ryan, I believe, took over more of the control of that department.
Yeah. Correct.
So you had 3 full-time people at one time, plus I believe 2, maybe a third part-time person.
There was a full-time person just managing that facility.
That's
basically what you're saying.
Correct.
Versus the idea of a working type of management.
Right. My testimonial on all this, and the fact is, one sunny day last fall, when Josh still worked at your facility, the fact that
No, he doesn't work there anymore. He's gone.
he didn't know me from Adam. He asked me to actually show me the dump sticker that I didn't have on my vehicle because, long story short, I didn't have one.
Because your mother used to live here.
Yeah, yeah. And the other part too is the fact is making sure that one that I paid for what I was actually disposing. The fact is thanking him for doing his job because it's been the first time in 3 years that somebody's even asked me that question or walked up and looked at the vehicle.
Right.
You applaud their effort, not actually discourage them from actually doing that.
Again, going back to the idea, and sometimes it's not the idea that people don't want to do it, it's just when they're tasked to having multiple
Time.
jobs, you know, you always do the priority, not so much to the stuff that actually doesn't.
If you're not right on top of your boxes, you're not right on top of your recyclables, people are just throwing everything in the hole.
You got one guy just working the baler on a Saturday
You
morning.
got one
I
guy
get
just
it.
walking the baler, you got one guy just operating the packer and watching what's getting thrown in, you know what I mean? And we've had instances where we've had some people come over and not do some nicely things to the guys. We just had a report today, so, well, it was from Saturday, but
Do you staff hire on Saturdays? I mean, do you actually have a, I mean, I was just curious, I mean, it seems so Saturday is like, you know, you probably do as much Saturday as you do the rest of the week. I mean, it'd be interesting to just see how you actually schedule the guys for that, you know,
two
if you,
full-timers, two part-timers on a Saturday.
and that's the same staff you have during the week though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes it's, it's basically Marcel, Greg, and two part-timers. But there's days during the week, those part-timers aren't there. Or they alternate.
But again, that's up to you. I mean, we're not going to micromanage that.
No, it's a lot of hours.
It's all the way you work, but just make sure, I guess that question is make sure you have the proper staff to make it work, that's all.
Randy's policing all his new staff.
Yep.
They're working out or they're leaving.
I'm weeding
Any other
them
world,
out.
right?
That's how it should be.
I'm weeding them out real quick.
That's it. Better to weed them out now before it gets cold and snowy.
That's it.
The,
PWOT.
Yep.
We gonna hit 40 grand this year, or is that we haven't gotten above 30 grand in the last 3 years?
Well, I was understaffed, so yeah, we're gonna hit it and then some.
Okay, that's what I need to hear. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Same question, advertising, is it adequate? We spent $2,700 year to date, and you had a budget next year of $1,200.
Keep it at 1,200. I don't plan on losing anybody, so I don't have to have.
That's the advertising.
I like that approach.
That's a good answer, Randy.
That's better than the last one.
All
I
right.
like that approach.
Professional services, what's the $10,000 increase this year?
We're going to revisit that, but the reason is it was a mistake from prior year.
So it's not there, we didn't have something.
Right.
Okay, if you can just give us a list of what's in
But
that line.
we're going to be meeting with Mandy and the guy that does our MS4 program, and we're going to try to figure out a way to do most of the stuff in-house so we don't have to pay out
Okay,
so
so
much in professional fees.
put that on the list of things to
So-
revisit, if you would,
Yep.
then, because you're going to cover that. Thank
Yep.
you. Rental of equipment, do we expect to spend 30 grand this year? Again, 3-year history says we haven't gone above 20. If we're buying the stuff, we shouldn't have to rent it.
That's what my hopes are, that we don't have to rent, that we can own it.
Okay, so if that's the case, then I would advocate that we actually drop the 10 to pay for some of the other stuff that we've increased to give you the equipment.
Comfortable with that? Give me a
So-
skid steer.
The rental of the equipment line also covers the use of the Vector truck for cleaning.
I was going to say,
I was reading that as well.
half of that actually goes back to his department to
Yes.
take care of the wear
Oh,
and tear.
And as we progress through the cleaning of that system, that amount's becoming less every
Less and
year.
less.
So do you
Okay,
still want to?
okay, so the 10 is, in your opinion, is the 20 adequate, Steve, because you've sat in his shoes?
For paying the sewer department for the Vector work is, we're looking at probably $5,000 or less per year. Give me one
How much did I pay
second
you
here.
last year? I thought that came out of some of my overtime fund.
That's the wages get paid out of the overtime line. The use of the Vector truck comes out of the rental equipment line.
Yeah, that's
And then
$75 an hour.
Based on 20 hours a week for 10 weeks, I mean, it's, you know, if you equate the hours, so you're saying you're spending less time every year,
Correct.
so it's not 20 hours a week for 10 weeks at this point?
Less time. As we progress through the system, when we get it clean, it's easier to maintain each year, so we're starting to spend less time doing it.
We only have to back them out
Preventive
if they're
maintenance.
50% full or more.
Yeah, but we're still on that plan, right, as far as on that,
Right.
Right.
yeah, so we
It's all
haven't
part of
achieved
that.
that.
Yeah.
That we're gonna be doing.
Once we complete, we're actually, cleaning portions of the system, the drainage system every year. As we get completely, do that system, then we're only required to do the bases that are 50% full, or greater.
Right, right.
So it's, the work is becoming less and less as long as we do that preventive
As long as
maintenance
you
every
stay
year.
on it.
Yes.
It's just a matter of going to each catch basin, looking down and making sure that you're less than 50%.
So at this point in time, I mean, knowing the amount of sand that was put on this year and the roads and stuff, so maybe we're better off just leaving that amount.
We're using less and less sand because of the silica,
Yeah.
and we can't.
No, if we
use
do it
the
this
sand.
year, we'll be fine for, we're nowhere near the actual 30 at this point.
Yeah.
So
But
as
the
long
30
as he can do it.
But the 30 is not, I mean, half of that 30 was actually for rental fees, so that only left 15,000 for rental of equipment, and I'm not sure,
That's not much. If I
Yeah.
do ditching, a lot of that got
you can chew that up
subbed
in a
out
couple
last
months,
year
I
to
mean.
ETTI when they were doing the ditching along Gould Road and everything else. So if we had to do that, then we'd be renting a machine that's like what, $5,500 to $6,000 a month. So if we have a couple months worth of ditching, then there's 12 grand.
Do you actually, do you know what you'd be, you don't, do you have an idea what you'd be renting for the summer, or what your plans are for the summer yet?
All depends. I mean, it depends what comes up.
So we
But,
say,
but again, the 3-year history on rental of equipment hasn't exceeded 20 grand, and we're budgeting 30.
So basically, you haven't rented more than $5,000 worth of equipment.
Steve hasn't billed us yet either.
I understand that. I understand that. I
As we had
understand
this
that.
conversation, I was
Sticking
supposed
with
to
that-
send the information to Diane yesterday.
sticking with Alan's idea though, we back that down to 20. Does that leave enough for everything to get done?
I don't know, it
Steve?
depends what his bill is that he's gonna be sending over,
Well,
I guess.
Currently, no, we just started this year
Right?
cleaning some areas. We typically do that after sewer cleaning's done. And I have right now on the spreadsheet, it's the ballpark around $1,800 from what was done at the end of last summer and what we've done so far this year.
I mean, my recommendation would actually bring it down 5,000, bring it to 25.
I can live with that.
That's a fair compromise.
I can live with that because I don't
And
want to.
we'll revisit next year, and Steve will be kinder to us, hopefully.
Because the next two items actually don't feel so favorable. The fact that one of the things, repairs and maintenance to catch basins, the fact is $5 grand adequate. We spent 4,900 already year to date.
Now that'd have to be up, well, just the Park Street alone, I have 13 catch basins I gotta raise.
So we just found a place for that $5 grand, we said.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
The majority of that money that was spent out of that line was due to the Route 196 project that was done in Lisbon Falls. Where the majority of the catch basins, the grates and covers and everything were, or grates and rings were replaced.
Do you have any idea on number?
I want to say it's darn close to the total amount spent in that line.
Okay, so same question, is $5 grand adequate, or do I need to go up on that? Because we've already,
What made you do, Steve?
I can't remember off the top of my head. It was,
Some
I
extra
wasn't
amount
in-
all the way down to Main Street, right?
put it on the list. Let these guys regroup and give us an idea.
I would say we'd be pretty close to being good with the same amount of money.
Okay.
I mean, I do have to buy some more covers, but that's,
Mowing, the same thing. That line's pretty well already expended. Spring's coming, and the fact is the budget you have this year adequate? It is?
Because we just contract that out once a year to do the roadside mowing.
Okay.
So we've already,
Okay.
we've already done.
So
what
there
we
won't be
need
any
to do.
this year, and it'll be, okay.
Right, it'll be in
Okay,
the next
good,
budget.
thank you. Tree removal. That seems to be the buzzword these days. I fielded another one today, and I know we talked about the street, the one on Pleasant Street.
one on Pleasant Street is, I talked to Asplin, and they're gonna lessen the load on that tree.
That's all I was expecting,
Yeah,
because it's,
that's what they're gonna be doing, is especially the one that overhangs the house.
right.
Even though it's not our tree, they said they'd go over and take that care, you know. make
They're
the window
gonna
lot-
deal with it when it goes across their line, that
Right.
runs underneath that, absolutely. So
Yeah,
that's,
so they're gonna go make that look like a Charlie Brown tree. Pretty
that's fine. That's fine. And because the only concern there is the fact is, it looks like it's split, and it's eventually gonna come right down across everything that's actually
Right.
on that side of the road.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Is what you have in your tree removal budget adequate?
We've still
which
got
number?
3,500 left.
So you've only spent,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, you got 6,000 that was originally written in there, so.
There again, it all depends on what, whether Mother Nature sends us. I mean, I've got the ability to do cleanup.
You know what we need to do sometime is we need to have somebody go around and mark get a list of all the trees and in order of the most extreme that need to come down to the end. And have like an ongoing list that we can work on.
I would I mean,
I think with Asplund going around, I mean, they're taking care of a lot of that stuff. I mean, they're even cutting.
They're limiting it, so by all means.
Living,
yeah.
but they're dropping dead stuff that's
Yeah,
on
yeah.
the side of the road too. They're cutting them right
Yeah.
off and laying them down. So, let's wait and see what they
What
get
they
done.
come out of it.
What it looks like after they're done. I mean, kind of makes sense to go around but they're only allotted to do so much. You know what I mean?
No, by all means. By all means, it's misunderstanding of what people understand. Just because it's actually there doesn't mean the whole tree's coming down. It
Right.
means what's actually over their infrastructure is what they're charged with.
So they answer to this one person, and
Yep.
I think it's a woman, but she tells them what they got to do.
Yep.
they're doing preventive maintenance is what they're doing.
Pretty much,
That's
yeah.
all they're doing. They're just trying to avoid a problem.
But there are certain pockets in the community, like the old school neighborhoods. Pinewoods is brutal when you get up around the pines associated with that. The same thing, my area, Plummer, Pleasant, Bowden, out that way. The fact is, it's way overgrown. So when you do these cutbacks,
Huge.
Question is
Yeah.
in those areas too, where's the setback of the road and what's on our property, what's on personal
Correct.
property.
Right.
Right.
Responsibility wise, I mean, it's gonna be interesting even when they do Main Street, cause from the, meeting that they had, they said that most of the trees going up 125 on both sides would be gone, and some of that's in the right of way, some of it's not, I mean, so, it's gonna look at
different,
125.
be a
It's gonna
different,
look-
different
Definitely
landscape.
It was gonna look like Route 9 did when they first cut it, I mean, it's gonna be a change of scenery, you know.
Take like back to town from your shop. Those are big maples and
Yeah, those
big
are
oaks.
150-year-old trees that are gonna be gone, you mean, so,
Gone.
yeah. Part of
I'm
the
sure
process.
people will be up in arms like they were for Route 9, but they get used to it.
Part of the game, just one of those things.
Progress hurts sometimes.
You don't own as much as your front lawn as you think.
I guess I had a question, how much more you got on your list? Are you there, or are you like getting to the bottom?
Hot top after gravel.
Okay, you finish up.
Hot top, but the fact is that adequate?
For 15 grand?
He already told us, no, that's for patching, but,
Yeah.
That's for patching stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Okay.
I wouldn't change it.
Winter ops, I'm surprised that we only spent 43 grand in overtime last year.
But I
Is
didn't
that-
have people. You didn't even have a public works director. Well, you had part one.
He's a good man.
He is a great
Stand
man.
in, tell him.
He's a great guy.
He's a good man, absolutely. Steve takes a lot of
Pat him on
collateral
the
hits.
shoulder. Good job,
I
Tim.
think the latest budget report I looked at was actually 51,000. That was.
Yeah, I know I got an old report. That's why I was just...
But let's revisit this next year. I'll probably be asking you for some more.
Okay, contracted services. We did this last year. It's a 3-year contract for $50K. Last year, we specifically reduced the amount for the sidewalks back to the $50K to be able to be working within that budget. Why has it gone up again this year?
Because of the contracted trucks that we have hauling the winter snow.
Contractor services the 50,000 is allotted for the sidewalk removal,
Right.
The other-
sidewalk cleaning. So that's gone
That's
anyway.
right. That's 4 seasons flat out.
Right. And then when we hire more trucks, because we don't have a wheeler,
Okay, so there's more in there. That's what I wasn't
Exactly.
understanding.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I needed to hear. That's not the only thing that was in that line item. Okay.
You're gonna see that line item over budget because of the trucks that we hired this year to haul off some of the snow, and we didn't have more than the 50,000 in there.
Streetlights, electricity. I know we just did the streetlight conversion. I know we haven't seen that yet. We're probably 4 or 5 months out. My question
We aren't
is,
even in the schedule at this point, so
we've
may
gotten
not-
nowhere near the budget. Last 3 years haven't exceeded 90 grand. Is the fact that, is that budget high, or is there any reduction in that potential?
I'm gonna.
Could you look
I'm gonna
at
check
that?
with Brenda on that. We may be able to because of the
Yep. There's
good
potential.
rates I
Donna.
got for the standard offer.
Okay. Go you. I'm done.
Does that even play effect?
Now.
Does that even play effect with the streetlights though? The standard offer? It does?
Yeah, because it's a high, it's not a medium account, it's a high account, yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
'Cause I've locked in.
We're not locking in the small ones either, because you're
Yeah, well, I
hitting
just-
everything, right?
Yeah, I'm getting everything now.
That's what I thought. That's why I asked.
Getting a
because-
good deal too on what I locked in at.
But that doesn't account in for streetlights, so does it? I mean, the streetlights is a totally different.
No, but the conversion to LED,
That will actually reduce.
that's where I was living.
We won't see that for a little.
Because there was a specific figure that 22 grand
Yeah,
that we were looking for savings annually?
you can't count that till we actually see it on writing.
I understand, but
That's
the
that.
fact is,
So it's gonna be, well, it's coming.
I don't have to accept the current budget either, too, by asking the question. That's why I was asking.
Totally agreed.
So my question to you guys is, at what point do you guys want me to start getting hard numbers on truck?
Now.
Yeah.
No, we gotta,
No,
we
no.
can't go out to bid yet until after next week's
Sometime
meeting.
after morning.
After next week.
After next Tuesday.
Yeah, officially Wednesday morning next week.
I think it's not unrealistic that you actually do your work and actually have your bid specs ready. I mean, that's gonna take you a little bit of time to actually get the specs that you need. I mean, all the correct specs, so
Right.
when you're ready, you can just plug them in and go. you know?
Right.
That's gonna
I mean,
take a little bit of homework.
I have specs from surrounding towns who have ordered, you know, and I had Duncan go through them. You know, your rear ends, your drive line, your motor, your tranny, your, you know, all your suspension, you know, making sure everything's up, you know, and the electrical issues that people have had with certain models, staying away from those models. So I've done some of the homework that way and kind of looking ahead.
To get that all packaged in one,
Right.
you know, one folder so you
I'm
can
just
be ready to
hoping
go.
that that truck that, you know, fits the bill, fits the budget.
Well, that's what I'm kind of talking about, the idea of trying to get the spec so it's not a guess, it's pretty much
Exactly.
what you got,
Yep.
you know?
I'm
Still got
done.
more? You're
No,
done?
no, I'm texting our PW director right now to actually
Yeah.
get a spec fee.
We actually talked about the 125 project a little bit. Is there anything that you know of that we actually have to do beyond that that's going to affect our budget in the upcoming? Is there any pre-work that we have to do in that area, or is that pretty much all figured on state? That's actually
All
everything.
on the state,
So
as far as I
nothing-
know, unless we're gonna
nothing
do
we-
something outside of their scope of work.
So as far as for drainage, piping, there's really nothing that the
No,
community would be responsible for.
Well, Sewer, you're running your stuff down there, right?
It's already funded.
The only
Yeah.
thing is, I don't know about water, if he's got his,
Yeah, we don't
I
know.
don't think he's got.
He's gotta go to
funding.
referendum
Yeah.
for that.
Right.
But I mean, the only thing I was curious about is, I mean, that's coming up. We're hoping it's coming up in the.
September, if
Yeah.
it'd be in the next budget, not
It would
this
be,
one,
yeah.
because it's gonna be September of 2020.
Yeah, but I
I'll
guess,
believe it when they go out to bid.
but again, it's just one of those things, if there's anything
You
that
see
we
the-
gotta start planning for, it'd be
Yeah.
nice to
The
actually
state
start.
today canceled a bunch of bids. They had 30 projects they canceled because the bids were too high. They came in like,
Yeah.
it was like 50% above what they were expecting, and they just canceled it. Like
Yeah.
in
A lot of
Portland
people-
and,
A lot of contractors
Bangor area.
don't need work right
right, it's so jammed up with
now. They're
everything.
jacking it up
Yeah.
and,
Statistic that I'm hearing since last spring is the fact is anything that you have out on bid, you can expect to pay 40% more than you would have the previous year. And that is not going to reverse itself until December this year, because they've already lined up their work. I mean, I can give you a case in point with the Glidden excavating at the time when we were looking at doing a small paving bid, already had 13 projects that he was actually looking to schedule. They have the work this year.
Oh, yeah.
And they're paying a premium to get the labor to do them.
Right, and a lot of companies
You
went out
do-
of
you do
business
the
during the
math.
Great
We-
Recession, and
we
so there's
pay.
less people doing it.
that's exactly right.
Any questions for us or anything?
I think you asked me plenty.
Perfect. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Randy.
Yeah, no problem.
Appreciate it.
Sir. All right, Mr. Man, what did you have?
The only thing I had a question, I meant, you had came forward with a proposal about your lifts and stuff. Is that something that's gonna be in a future discussion, or?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Next week's meeting.
Okay.
I've
Is that-
gotten a quote right from the supplier, and I don't know why we would go to anybody else that would be the middleman, because these are the manufacturer, straight from the manufacturer, and they have what is cooperative purchasing.
Yep.
Where, you know, you get a little bit of a price break, so,
So
Nice.
you're saying that this is gonna happen in this year's budget, but not next year's, so.
This year.
this year.
He feels
Because-
he's gonna have enough left over.
Because I'll have, you know, wages that I didn't pay, that were allotted for,
Yeah.
alone will pay for the lifts.
Okay, I just wanna make
Your-
sure that we didn't have something coming up that we weren't
Your
talking
bid
about.
includes installation and delivery, right?
There's no
No
installation.
installation, it's.
So just set it up.
They just you roll them under the tire, under the 4 tires, you hit the button, all 4 go up. Truck's in the air.
You can move it around.
16K,
Okay,
right?
so it doesn't
My
need to be
memory
mounted to
serves
the
me.
floor, none of that kind of.
They're portable.
You just gotta have
that's all
an
I was-
adequate floor, that's
Yeah,
what the new
right,
addition
right.
should be.
It's
Correct, yeah.
You can bring a fire truck in there, you can bring a school bus in there.
Anything.
ceiling's tall,
Yep.
good spot.
Mid-30s on that?
Yep.
Okay, that's what
Mid-30s.
I thought 16K had lit for some reason. That was sticking in my head. I don't know why. But, okay, so it's pretty straightforward. And you said that.
I just wanted to make sure that we weren't missing something going forward. You had discussed that we
Now,
didn't.
there was a couple of other buying options that the company told us about that Brenda was going to apply for. They could save us another few bucks, but hey, it's a couple hundred here, a few hundred there is worth it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Good.
Sure. Come on down, Steve. Woohoo.
He's still down.
I'm still down. Randy's running.
Don't blame him. Don't blame him.
All right, this is my first time actually doing this by myself with you guys. It'll be interesting. But Steve Avioli, sewer superintendent, and I'm here to answer any questions you have regarding our budget for next fiscal year.
Go.
Want to reduce it all. Sorry.
No, I think you guys are doing a great job.
Thank you, Chris.
So I know you said you're adding another position. Could you explain what the duties and stuff that this position adds?
This position would actually become a second operator. Currently, we have myself, we have a maintenance supervisor, we have one operator, and we have a lab tech that pulls operator and lab tech duties. All of us basically do repair and maintenance around the facility and collection system. I don't do it as much as I used to, but I'm still there when they need me. And this position would technically, fill that position. It will help fill a void that I'm leaving behind. And it was based on the fact that when Ryan Layton was here and he was filling basically the superintendent type duties, I was actually a full working operations manager. I still have all the operations manager duties, except for I'm not working in the field with the staff, which is leaving them shorthanded at times. And with our 50 position right now is open, it's we're feeling the pinch these last few weeks because April into May is usually our busiest time of the year with preparing for upcoming seasonal requirements from DEP and sewer cleaning and catch basin cleaning.
You're just really gaining 50%. You're not really gaining a full position. In a sense. You just,
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And this would be basically from beginning of November to April is where we would see a gain from that position because we typically have them from April to the 1st of November.
And account number 5425, improvements. What's in that list of projects for the coming years, Steve?
I was actually, the main item I was actually looking for in that line is a generator for the treatment plant. We currently do not have one to operate treatment plant in emergencies or power failures. Kind of leaves us in a bind. We have a portable that will run our disinfection system, and that's also the same portable that we haul around the pump stations. And typically the treatment plant and the stations, the way the grid is set up in the Lisbon Falls area, we don't lose power as much as some areas. Sometimes we lose power. It could be hours on end while the rest of the town has power.
If you had a big ice storm and you were out for days, it could be an issue.
I wouldn't say necessarily days because we're close enough to the substation, but it is a matter of every hour could hurt us the longer that system's not operating. We're not providing air to our bacteria that we need to keep alive.
Would that be a diesel or would that be gas or what are you thinking as far as for? That'd be
Probably
a fixed.
propane.
Be a fixed unit. Right?
Yes, it is. It'd be fairly large.
Yep.
Propane's nice and cheap resource.
Yeah, we don't have natural gas down in that area.
Maintaining this is just much easier with the advanced gas. So.
Any prelim on rate increase of what we got for a budget here?
We're looking at 6% this year for a rate increase.
Perfect. The red dot's listening. Thank you, sir.
That was recommended with the rate increases we had the past 2 years, and in order to get to our goal of $8 per 100 cubic feet, which was recommended in the letter. It was right in the letter when it went out to referendum before referendum to inform the public. We did 2 rate increases of 12%. We're looking at 6% this year, and we're going to go from there until we reach our goal. Because we got to have that revenue coming in order to pay that debt service by 2023.
So just to kind of piggyback on that, so this is the continuing process as recommended by all of our associates, which is their assessment after they also helped us with getting grant monies to start on this replacement of infrastructure that's been well overdue in some cases. So this is all part of the bigger plan. I think it's important that we point that out.
Yes, it was part of the plan we originally started putting it in place in 2016. And that's when we went out to referendum.
Excellent. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
And for the point of public consumption, the entire budget increase this year nets to $12,473. Nothing to see here. The 50% position is offset by the improvements, and the director has actually given us a list of what he's looking for the coming year, in my opinion.
Pretty straightforward. Something that everybody needs to happen.
Any other questions? Anybody?
Important department.
Yeah, kind of. There ain't nobody there. We'll know about it quick.
You don't notice it until it doesn't
Yeah,
work.
that's right. We'll know. We'll
Maybe
know
the-
if nobody's there. We'll find out real
Unless
fast.
you're on high ground.
Do you,
But they can still smell the problem.
That's right.
besides the improvements that are happening right now, is there other areas that are coming up as concerns? Because I know you had a full analysis, but we just recently had another leak somewhere or a problem, right? Is that,
Yeah, we recently had a problem on Crest Avenue that's been addressed. And Crest Avenue is not currently on a list for these improvements that were doing for rural development funds. Based on recent history over the last 5 years, I will be looking sometime in the near future, within the next couple of years, of looking at replacing those lines in the town right away, similar to what we did on Faith Street back around 2004, because of issues we had due to the age and the way they were installed and the material they're made of. There's better materials nowadays that could work a lot better, and the issues seem to come every 4 or 5 years with those lines. So I think it's something we can revisit in a few years with dealing with them.
yeah, so as far as for preventive maintenance in your budget, as far as for just looking at different lines and stuff like that, that last study that you did just a few years back, did that cover a good part of that? Or, because I mean, before I wasn't on the council, but there was some evaluation of the sewer, right?
Yes, that's
That
where
done
the
pretty much town-wide.
yes it was.
That was where the 20 million came from, because
Correct,
it was
yeah.
hitting the capacity right there. Yes.
Yeah, and that's what we're currently. We'll finish this first phase. Will be finished by the end of July, and there's going to be a couple additions to the first phase. The timing of when that work will occur will be Upland Road, Webster Road, and St. Anne Street. The timing of when that work will occur is not known yet. That's still in the design phases. And then Main Street, of course, is going to be as part of this funding to be done next year. And I'm sure there's going to be more as we work through as some contingency funds come available.
Yep.
Of course, with there's pump station work and treatment plant work is going to happen
Do you
also.
think you have a pretty good handle on the idea of the next few years as far as what needs to be done in sense? I mean,
Yes.
what you can do with the funding you have, I guess. In
Yes,
a sense,
yeah. We have the funding that we actually are working on right now through the first phase and the remainder of the work that was approved for this funding. It's already all the work is in the schedule's in place for that to happen within the next 4 to 5 years to be completed. It's just a matter of when, and then we're going to move forward. We do expect probably the next 4 to 6 years we may start looking into doing phase 2. Depending on how things work, we'll start the planning for that, and we'll have to see how that goes from there.
So you
Grant.
have a pretty good handle on
yeah.
it. So.
Grant money. Find grant money.
Well, the hardest thing is just with this discussion we have on the water.
What's that?
Just the idea of
understand.
knowing you have concerns, but just not
Right.
the resources to be able to address it. I mean, that's
Right.
tough, you know.
And that's the same, with our capital improvement funds, it's finding these other things, because there is contingency money depending on how these projects, because we use an estimate for the projects on what they're going to cost. And if we have, whatever monies we have left over are going to go to other pump station upgrades, sewer line replacements. So even though we have a plan in place for what we want to do, there could be plenty of additions to that, which we're really hoping on and counting on.
There was a discussion the night that the 125 project was down at the school when they were doing the operations of it, and part of that discussion was as far as they were looking at all the downtown businesses to try and figure out where their sewer exited and if they had to be upgraded. Now, has any of that been done beyond the business district up 125 to the residents?
No, it
And
has
is that going to have an impact? And I mean, is it they going by just the idea that responsibility is just to replace the main line, and then anybody coming into it, if they had a concern, that would have to be addressed as it happened, or?
They're replacing the main line, and the services for each home or business will be replaced to the property line. And that's a matter of, because the elevation of the sewer line itself,
Yeah.
as it goes, because there's sags and there's high areas in some
Yeah.
places. But as they go through, they're going to change the elevation, will change on those service connections also. And to be able to make sure everything will still flow the way that it should in those lines, they will go back to the property lines.
Okay, so that should be all taken care of with the project?
Yes.
That's already been in
Yes,
place?
correct. That's
I
the same.
I just knew when we did Route 9, when it came to the water part of it, there was just a lot of questions as far as how far it went out and what was good, what was bad, but, yeah, I mean, it was all addressed, it was all taken care of, but
Yeah.
just property owners always had that question, you know?
Oh, no, that's perfectly understandable.
Yeah.
You mentioned Crest Avenue and got me thinking, when we're replacing a line, do we do any repairs, cure in place rather than full replacement?
Yes, some of these, Webster Road and possibly Upland Road are actually looking to do cured in place pipe if it's, found to be feasible when the time comes.
And that comes from Ulver Associates? Or
Yes.
Okay.
They'll make
Okay,
that determination.
Perfect.
In the matter of Crest Avenue, these are actually 2-inch pressure lines. Each home down in the backside there actually has a pump in their basement that pumps up to a common sewer manhole.
Right.
Right, and that's no cured in
Okay,
place
so it's
there.
just it's inadequate, is what you're saying?
Yes.
But yes, you do. The only reason I was asking is less of a cost, just like anything else, and
Yeah.
we're already doing that by all means. Okay, that's all I was asking before.
Anyone?
Revenue on you have trucks that come to you, correct?
Yes, septic trucks.
Yeah. They have an increase like the town has an increase? Are you going by the cubic foot like you do for the water readings? Are they?
We're actually looking at a 0.5% increase on them this year. Typically, we charge them 11.5 cents a gallon now. It'll go up to 12 cents a gallon.
And you're charging the town how much by the gallon?
Oh.
Or a customer? Or are you doing it by cubic feet? How are you?
The town's charged by
What-
cubic feet off of water meters.
Correct, I understand that, right? So if you live in the town and you flush the toilet and by the cubic foot, what is the town person, yourself or myself or anybody else in here that's got town sewer, what are they paying for versus the guy that's coming from some other town bringing his stuff here and pumping it in?
Homeowners are paying $67.20 per 100 cubic feet. We are charging $115 per 1,000 gallons to the property owner that brings that material comes to us. That's what we're actually charging septic hauler that to bring that to us,
Right,
which
so-
of course, however they charge their clients is on them.
Right, so the townspeople are being treated better than the pump truck guy?
You figure, well, 67.20 per 1,000 cubic feet. You're talking 7,480 gallons per 1,000 cubic feet. So yes, you're paying 67.20 for
Just letting the
7,000
public out there,
gallons.
because I've had people address me about, that's why I really brought it up, because they see tanks coming from neighborhoods that are not ours. And they're
Right.
saying, oh, well, how, what's the difference? So again, some of my questions are just so other people can get the feel of the fact that you're getting a good rate as a sewer person from the town of Lisbon as you would if somebody better than the
Correct.
guy just bringing his stuff from somewhere else.
Right, and one thing to keep in mind is when you're dealing with septage, you're dealing with a concentrated waste versus sewer, which is 90 to 99% water.
Correct. Just more stuff out there for the world to take in, Steve.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you very much for sharing with us.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Anything else for Steve?
No, sir. Thank you, sir.
Steve, yes, thanks.
Good
Thanks very
job.
much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you,
You
everyone.
can fly solo anytime.
All good.
All right, so there's no formal, so I'll just adjourn this workshop
I
tonight.
thought she was going.
Oh, does she have one? I'm sorry, did I?
The town manager had to do
I think
it.
I skipped her. I think I skipped her.
And hydrogen rental, we said we're not gonna fund that this year.
Right.
That's what I heard.
About salt sheds or something,
They do have a new four-door pickup truck over there.
The major difference in this budget is the printing.
Yeah.
It's come out of my budget, it's gone into the clerk's budget because she does the town report.
Right.
So I than that, everything is pretty stable. I did delete the overtime because Megan typically takes it in comp time. I can't force her to do that, but that's what she's been doing.
Megan, she's a
Sorry, I had that email.
workhorse. She's a workhorse. She keeps going and going.
Thank God we have her.
I'm going to try
sure.
to have revenues out to you by the end of the week. I started working on them yesterday, and
And your intent would be to review them on the meeting of the 21st, is that what you said? Or, no, actually, you didn't answer on that one. When are we gonna actually have them for a discussion item here?
probably the 21st when you revisit your other items.
Okay. The reason being is because we seem to be stuffing a considerable amount of stuff in that future list. I just wanna make sure we got adequate
Yeah.
time, knowing that we'd like to keep to the
Yep.
2-hour format
I'll
to be able
send
to
you
be
that list
productive.
too by the end of the week as well.
Just curious, did we use the entire advertising budget already?
I haven't got that with me. I'll check on that for you.
Oh, no worries. It's not a big line, but I'm curious, that's all. What else from,
Yeah,
you digging on your laundry list?
I don't remember seeing, we talked about that. You already addressed it. Administrative wages, the fact that it is part that we were talking about for the additional certification that was actually there.
Yep.
Is she a exempt or non-exempt employee?
She's non-exempt.
Non-exempt. Looking back in hindsight, I think it was probably an error on our part that she clearly, given the capacity of what she's doing, we probably had a good case to be able to make her an
I
exempt
checked with
employee.
Dan Stockford on that, and he didn't feel that way,
On the,
being an exempt employee.
did he give you a reason for why? Not that I'm advocating now, because it's done is done, we'll move forward.
Because she really didn't meet the three-prong test for what she does for work.
Okay, so
She has no employees under her.
I understand that, but she's also got the technical part too, with the HR piece, which
Right.
is where I would actually say, because it's not just the supervisory part of it, and then the professional part. That's fine. That was it.
Nothing else from you, Al?
That was it. It was
Anyone
just,
else?
it was getting into the exempt part of it. She's already addressed it.
I mean, as far as a workshop, I mean, if we have a few more minutes, I'd like to see if we could just have some discussion about maybe our like a finance department on what we have a plan moving forward. Is that anything we can talk about in this workshop at all, or just plan-wise?
I'm going to have more information after Thursday. I talked to the auditor today, and he's going to be able to provide us with somebody to help us get through this.
Yeah, it would just be nice to know as a council,
Yeah.
it'd be a discussion about where we're at and how we're working, move through it.
I can speak to this. So, just so you know, where I'm at with Diane and where we're at as council is that we're going to continue to interview until the position's filled. Right now, the candidates that we've seen come across, we've interviewed a couple, some not so much. And we're not seeing a real strong pool right now. So I think the idea is that we're going to try to go ahead and we've made some assessments about how we can maybe mitigate some of the duties that were in the finance director's office. Diane has a background in that field, so maybe she's going to go ahead, take some of her responsibilities that she can, and ask Chief to step up and handle some of that day-to-day stuff so that she can take operations for the day-to-day on finance director on. That way, we're not going to make any forward progress on some of the projects that we had Lydia looking at, which is looking ahead, trying to plan ahead versus looking at day-to-day, which is what we wanted to get her out of. It's exactly why we hired that assistant. So we can get back to that spot, but we want to get the right person.
Well, I mean, I think that's the biggest thing is that we actually had a big push, the idea of actually bringing on a lot of the software that we were looking at. I mean, as far as for integrating it into our financial department. I mean, and I'm just wondering if some of the expectations that we had as a council and some of the goals we have just need to be actually kind of backed up a little bit to the point of just maintaining operations and make sure that the necessary stuff gets done. And we are right in the middle of a budget season and an audit and a lot of, I just want to make sure that our expectations as a council are known, so none of us are actually look back and say, how come this didn't happen? I mean, right now, we have a manager that's actually running a finance department that actually, I mean, there's just some big holes there, that's all. So, I mean.
We're missing, without Lydia having her here, there's no doubt about it, there's a little hole there.
And the idea of the person,
I think-
we actually had Lydia that was stressed out about, that brought somebody else on that was helping that's no longer here either. So, I mean, there's actually, I mean, I think in a sense as we talked about the solid waste being staffed up before and not being staffed and things not being done, I think we need to look at that whole process and try to not get in this predicament. I don't know how you do that. I mean, there's a lot of new stuff we're learning right now. So the idea of having properly trained people and redundant of it, so one person is off that day, that there isn't a big problem.
I think that will, like, to your point, at one point in time, the philosophy, right, wrong, or indifferent, was to try to, when we would lose somebody, rather than backfill, we would spread the duties across everybody and their brother. Well, that can work sometimes, but eventually you get to, there's a fine line on a tipping point of where you're going from being lean to being understaffed, and you're costing more money than it's worth. So to go to that point, the Lydia being where she was at, and I think the stressor was implementation of the software package and the fact that we weren't given the full kind of scope of what the responsibilities or what the munis would need from us, and that wasn't clearly identified until we were knee-deep in it, and there was some pretty big misconceptions from both sides of who was responsible for what. Once we got that ironed out and Lydia realized it was going to be a bigger process, then I think that stress sort of came in there, because some of these kind of the primary modules needed to get up and running. And so now we're at a place where we're almost done all of those, and everything else is just peripheral. So that's why I was worried initially when Lydia gave her notice that we were going to stall. But I did get confirmation that all of the primary modules are in place. So the last one's going to come online was in August, and that was utilities, if I remember.
No, utility, we haven't even begun that yet.
Okay, which one-
It's
what's the
going
one
to be
in
the tax
August?
collection, but
That's what it was.
there's a glitch in that right
Right,
now,
yeah.
so I'll have to talk to you about that.
Yeah, we can certainly go over that. But I mean, that was coming in, and then the utilities was going to follow after. So we're in a good place where even if we had to park for a little bit, the
Well,
primary,
that was my situation, instead of actually going into it half-heartedly, in a sense, where if we are looking to get a finance director, and hopefully we get one that actually has the tools in the toolbox to move this forward, that we're not doing things twice. You know what I mean? And
Exactly.
if we have modules like the tax module coming up, and we actually already have tools in place that we can actually do it as we've done in previous years, and I mean, it'd be nice to think we could have a finance director in place next month, but I mean, it may take several months. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
I would just hope that at this point in time that we're just kind of directing in a way of just making sure the ship's still sailing, not trying to actually do new things, but just trying to actually maintain and hopefully trying to gear up to the point.
Not put us behind so we actually hear again that we don't have cash reconciliations when the outside auditor comes in, because it took us 2 years to get that out of the cycle, and we don't want to go back there.
No, absolutely, and
Right.
sometimes the idea of backing up a little bit is how you move forward. I mean, I hate to say that, but I mean, and I know there's people in the council that don't hear that, but unfortunately, sometimes you just got to make the shop work. You know what I mean, and make sure the bills are getting paid, and make sure the logistics of it is still happening, not so much making sure the bells and whistles are coming forward. But
the status quo, I think, in this particular point, it makes sense. We don't want to run forward. We can't run forward. Let's be honest. We can't run forward right now. We don't have the capacity or the resource to do it. So I think, like you said, the smart play has been, as soon as we had one loss, we were trying to stop the bleeding there with the understanding that we were going to go to a day-to-day piece. And the hope was that assistant would be able to carry that piece of it. And then when that assistant chose to pursue a different avenue, that really did kind of put us in a spot where it went from a we'll be okay to a real sense of urgency. So having that discussion with Diane about immediate stop gaps, because we didn't see anything. We were actively pursuing once we knew from the moment that Lydia said she was going. We started to get it out there, and we got a pretty small pool of candidates.
do we actually have I mean, we actually had X amount of dollars put aside for this assistant through the implementation money.
Yeah.
Which evidently now we're not expending after this week because there's no body there.
Right.
Do we actually, if we have a new finance director that comes on and actually says to do this job properly, I need an assistant, are we going to have this year's budget when we implement it in place that that's going to happen with these funds moving, carrying over? Or, I mean, I'm just wondering if we're going to be, I mean, it's one of the things we talked about in the budget that it's going to be moved forward to a different discussion. But I guess we just got to make sure that we're in a proper place that we support the
Here at least.
Yeah, exactly.
To back up too, if we think about it, when Lydia brought that ask before Lydia brought the ask that if she was here, she would have been asking for that to be a full-time position.
Correct, yeah.
And I think that we were all of the mind that if Lydia was asking, we had all had a pretty fair gauge. I don't want to speak for everybody, but I'm saying that because that's that when we took the temperature a couple times on this, we all agreed that if Lydia was coming to us with that type of ask, there was a good reason for
Absolutely,
it.
yeah.
And that doesn't change. While I trust Lydia's judgment, pretty much so, I think I would have voted in favor of bringing on another position just because we saw the benefit in the very short time we had that person, how much Lydia was able to get done and start to look forward for our community, and God knows we need that.
Do we actually, as a council, if, say, next month or the month after, we don't see a finance director actually filling the needs we want, I mean, do we actually then start looking to fill roles below that as another person like this assistant? I mean, is that something
Bookkeeper.
as a bookkeeper, is that something that we wait to that point too, or do we actually kind of start addressing that now? I mean, I don't really know. It's just one of those things where, I mean, I just want to make sure that once this budget cycle goes through, that when our hands aren't tied, because to me, it seems like it'd be a lot easier to fill the position below that may still have the same capabilities, I mean, the hands-on person than it would be maybe the finance director. I don't know, but if Diane's playing the role as finance director, I mean, it would be nice if there was someone playing the role of
Manager.
assistant, or not even assistant, or manager. I mean, to me, a manager is a manager. That's
Right.
not, they're overseeing, not actually doing it. I mean, so if she is actually playing the role of finance director, it'd be nice if she had the assistants that was here to actually still be doing the nuts and bolts of it. You mean so?
Agreed, but we're having a tough time with.
Either position.
Yeah, and I don't think it's something that we've taken off the table at any point in time. It's just a matter of we still need to kind of figure out what that next step looks like.
I think from this last circumstance, I think the idea of hiring and training temps is not really in our best interest. I think if we're gonna put somebody here and start teaching them how we do stuff, it's somebody that actually we plan on getting some.
Yeah, it's a difference between January and now.
Yeah.
And
By
I don't
all
think
means, it's at least it's a discussion for the current budget to be able to consider. And if it's just 30 days out from it, then it's not real different because the funds are already set aside.
Correct. Yeah.
I mean, for me, temp is not the way to go. We've seen that fail time and time again, so that's not even an option. I think it's a matter of.
It's not needed at times, but the idea of when you're actually spending your resources training that temp to actually leave, it doesn't really benefit us. So.
Nope, and I think that, what we have to do is we have to really just say to ourselves, I think we can, as it sits right now, get through this month and get into June, and then we have to decide. I don't think we have to wait till June to make a decision about this, but I think we have to accept the fact that May is going to be what it is right now, which is all hands on deck and hunker down to get through this month. I think once on the next agenda, we'll talk more about whether or not we can fill that position below. I have some reservations, but I can share them in that meeting.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's fine.
It'd be one of those things where, like I say, as Lydia came forward, I mean, and whether or not her stress was the idea of just the implementation of the software package, or the idea of just, as we talked about, the idea of just the staff being lean. You mean, and how does that actually get? And I'm a huge backup guy. I always want somebody to take care of a role if someone's not there, and
Right.
whether it's accident or sickness or leaving, it's one of those things where it's nice to have that.
Redundancy, yeah. That redundancy is critical. So, to go to that point, then I say that we table this and we circle back around on it.
Yeah.
I mean, Diane and I
Before
were
we
talking.
do, though, one of the questions I'm asked.
Okay.
We've been through one round, and clearly,
Nothing
nobody
there.
that I would want to hire, and that was the consensus from anybody sitting in the room in that regard. But capable persons, just not for what we're looking for. That said, with it being extended, are we doing anything different
We've
for
got
trying to
some more-
recruit?
We've got some,
I know we have different candidates, but if we're going at it the same way, am I expecting the same thing? The fact is, what are we doing to be able to get?
I mean, the advertisement,
Hit
where you're
different
looking.
Broaden the search.
Yeah, how do we broaden the search?
I think that,
Thank you,
I think
Mark.
that we have to look at, and that's something that we can.
Recruit further
talk
afield, see if you can.
I think
bring
we have to
people
look
from-
at some different resources. I know that you've been using traditional resources, so I think maybe it's time to look at some other
When are we
avenues.
looking at doing another round of interviews? You said you were.
We don't have
Like-
anything.
We don't have enough. Yeah, we don't have enough.
We don't have anything yet. We haven't seen any candidates, so
I've
that's
got
as far. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah,
So there's potential in this.
there is.
Okay.
we're looking
Okay,
at maybe.
good.
Closes Friday, I think.
Is there a deadline for the
I think
application?
Friday.
Friday. So, I mean, there is opportunity that maybe in the near future, we may be looking
Okay.
at other interviews.
Good. I'm encouraged. That's why I say, what if it doesn't? Then we look at broadening horizons. That's
Yeah,
what I was
so,
saying.
yeah, we'll go round 2 of the interviews, see if anything comes out of that, and if not, then we come back and we look at how we're approaching this, what avenues.
Everybody else sign on bonuses, right? We're
Yep.
gonna give you a TV, we're gonna give you.
Ah, that doesn't
They're
work.
headhunters.
That doesn't work for Chief Hagan. Why would I want to do
Hey,
that for a finance
we can-
director?
We can get them a seat over at Frank's, and then maybe a little bit of Grazi's to go. That might be the tipping point right there.
You never know, right? But as long as we know we're working forward on it, that's a key factor.
Yeah, I know Diane's working hard, and we thank you, Diane. I know it's a lot. I know it was kind of thrown in your lap right at the end of budget season. You know, that's not tough. So, much appreciated for all your hard work there. All right, nobody's got anything else?
It's still done before 8 o'clock.
That's perfect. But
2 minutes.
it's all right.
Love it.
Good stuff.
I gotta talk to you.
Yeah, I'm not going anywhere.
Can you
Oh.
shut the mics off?
You shut
Click
the
'em.
mics off.
Click 'em.
Are you still riding with me or something? Okay, cool.
I'm walking home.
All right, cool. I can wait for you then.